Hello, I am here today talking to you about our lot walk. Um, it was, almost a month ago, but I didn't want to go any longer and not go over with you how it went. Um, there wasn't a whole lot that we did. I mean, we were there while our project coordinator, he's our head of construction, that's what I've been calling him. We were there. We really didn't have to be there. We showed him where we wanted the house, and he kind of set some very rough markings for when the surveyor came. But just did a few measurements here and there of the land. Got a feel for, what kind of elevation is going to be needed, what kind of groundwork is going to be needed. We He was there for about an hour and a half, maybe. I think they said to allow up to 3 hours, but it went pretty quick, and it was super windy. Our property is across from like 2 miles of flat country field, no wind breakage at all. It was crazy windy and chilly. Um, so he, we had already marked kind of the four corners of the footprint of the house and where we wanted it. We ended up moving it about 30 feet to accommodate the septic system and to get it on a little bit higher ground. I'm really stubborn, and I was not in love with moving it even 30 feet because I had already moved it, and Matt and I had already marked it at exactly the location I want. And just a little backstory, if you've watched all my videos, you know this. So I was gifted the land from family, and this piece of property has been a goal for me to build on for like over 20 years. So I knew exactly where I wanted my house to be. I knew that when I looked out those great room windows, I wanted to see the opening of the trees where you can see the pond clearly. You're not at an angle. Um, so my husband had to kind of talk me off a little ledge there and help me to understand this 30 feet really doesn't change our view that much, and that I need to look at the big picture. 30 feet is nothing in the grand scheme of things. We have a 5.7875. We have almost 6 acres. 30 feet is a drop in the bucket when you're looking at this. So, and the pond that we have is a 7 acre, it's a lake. So we're not losing anything by moving 30 feet. We were originally wanting to mirror the floor plan, so we're building the Charleston. The original floor plan comes with the garage on the right. We were looking at it being on the left because it was going to be better for our drive, where we wanted the drive to come in. But after talking with our head of construction, he said, I wouldn't mirror it. Here's a few reasons why. It puts the garage at the low end of the house if we mirror it, or at the low end because the way the land goes. So keeping it unmirrored keeps the garage at the higher point of the house. Also, the garage will serve as a buffer to some of the wind that comes across the 2 mile wide fields. And it's going to take the brunt of the high winds that come out there. If we had mirrored it, my sons would have been catching those big gusts of winds. And I'm sure the house is fine and secure, and there's not any worries about, insulating around the windows. But long term, we have to think about, wind does create damage sometimes, and it's just going to be best if anything were to, over time, I mean, this is our forever home, so let's say 20 years down the road, if wind is breaking through seams and starting to wear on some of the insulation, it's just best to have the garage there rather than a bedroom. So, let me touch a little bit more on our driveway. So our driveway for the county, we were to choose two spots, a primary where we prefer it to be and a secondary where we're okay with it being. The primary, the county told us that we don't have to have a culvert. It's perfectly flat, no culvert needed. Our secondary, which is only 75 feet down the road, would require a 30-foot by 12-inch steel culvert dug. So obviously our primary was what we wanted anyway, and that's what they said required the least amount. But it ends up we're using the secondary because of where the house is now moved to, because of mirroring the house. Long term, we're going to be happier with it there. I wasn't in love with the idea of mirroring the house anyways, because I've seen it in person at the Milford office, how it is, and I didn't want to have to relearn it and it's not relearning, but falling in love with it a different way. I fell in love with it the way it is, so I didn't want to change it. So the last thing at our lot walk, he gave us kind of a to-do list. He wanted us to call the energy company and talk to them about getting a temporary transformer for construction set up, and we also needed to get in contact with the water company. Neither of those will do anything until we have an address. In our Indiana county that we live in, they will not give us an address until we have a building permit. So we are still in this process of getting that. We just need one final thing on the county's checklist of things we have to submit to get an address and a building permit. And then once we do, I'll be able to do those steps. But we're still roughly 5 to 6 weeks out from closing on it, so we've got a little bit of time. I'm not too stressed about that yet. So that was our lot walk. We were excited just to be sitting outside and watching that Schumacher truck show up. After the, also at the end, I will say this, another piece of the driveway. Our builder said that he can do the driveway. It might be cheaper to have someone else do it. So our septic guy actually, he does excavating. He actually gave us an estimate that was a little bit lower. So we are having him do the driveway as well as the septic. So we have the allowance for that in our paperwork for Schumacher, but we're going to be doing a separate draw, still attached to the same mortgage, but a separate draw to pay him to do that as soon as we close. So the bank will give us a check to pay the septic guy. It's nice that Schumacher Homes is really willing to let you take on some of the like the site prep, the lot improvement stuff. We are trying to get as much done. I know I've said this in one of my other videos. We're trying to get as much done prior to closing as possible because we don't want to be waiting on paperwork to be digging. We're already getting close to where we're going to be in the house around the end of the year. We'd love to make it somehow magically go faster, but we can't. But we don't want to be adding time on at the beginning because we're waiting for paperwork. So that was our lot walk, and your lot walk will likely go just as smooth. It's informational. They give you, talk to your builder, get to know them a little bit. We feel very comfortable with our guy. He was very honest about things. And that's a really good thing. We've been very fortunate in that, no one's giving us false hopes. They're being honest about, hey, they're not doing what we tell them and then not telling. How do I want to say this? I guess it was nice that even though I wanted to keep our house at the very exact spot that I had wanted for forever, that they said, we can do that, but you're going to have your septic guy come back out here. You're getting them to lower ground where you're going to have to build up higher. That's going to add more to your foundation costs. It was nice that they were honest and, forthcoming with that. I'm sure it benefits them just as much as it does us, but we're fortunate in that I'm really trusting the process right now that Schumacher has set forth. So best of luck to you, and if you're building or anything, feel free to shoot some comments down. If you're building with Schumacher, I'd love to hear about it. Send some comments or photos or whatever in the comments, and tell me what kind of house you're building. I'm excited. I love hearing about it. So have a good day.